Help us keep the Product Porch lights on by giving at patreon.com/theproductporch. Please review the podcast on your favorite platform. Your reviews help new listeners discover us. Thanks.
But likability doesn't earn me a bonus, get my product line in the direction it needs to go. Results do.
First off, that's false that likability won't give you a bonus. I think you can make a good living being the person who just says yes.
Welcome to the Product Porch with Joe Golly, Todd Blackier, and me, Ryan Cantwell. Do your stakeholders like you? Does that even matter? We talk about why it might and what likability could mean for your career. Now settle in, folks, because on the Product Porch, every topic is a product topic.
It's warmer on the porch. It's good. It's good that it's not as we don't have to wear our winter jackets.
It's getting
on the porch
a little warmer.
anymore.
It's nice. I can feel my fingers.
Yes. The hot tea is no longer, it's cold tea again, so it's good.
All right, fellas. So I was thinking about something. I have gotten to know you guys really well. On a scale of Joe to Todd, Joe, if somebody, it could literally be anybody, you might not even know them, would walk up to you and said the words, "I don't like you," you would be crushed. It would kill you. I mean,
It's probably true. I can't deny it. I can't deny it. That's
as a human
fair
being,
characterization.
Yeah, that's how you operate on relationships. Even if you don't know people very well, you put a lot into that. Todd, on the other hand, is the opposite. If somebody did the same thing and told him they didn't like him, he would just shrug his shoulders, say, "Okay," and never think about it again. It would be over.
I can't imagine someone not liking me, but okay.
So I think there are product managers that, we're going to play a game right off the bat. Where do you guys think I fall on the spectrum?
You're more me than you are Todd.
Yeah, if Joe is the far left, I'm on the far right. I would say you're more towards the left.
I skew left.
That has nothing to do with political affiliation. I just want to just call that out just to be very, very clear to everybody.
No, I was talking about handedness and pitching. That's what I was.
Yes. So I would agree with that. I think that's a fair assessment of me. I lean left. I'm not as left as Joe, but I do. But is it worth our time to put that much emotional investment in people liking us as product professionals and business people? That's what I want to talk about today, because I think I even challenge myself sometimes. Should that matter?
Okay, just for our listeners, I'm not like the biggest wuss on the face of the planet as Ryan is characterized. All right,
I didn't call you a wuss.
Well, no, I would be devastated. I'd be crushed. All right, so for product managers, you have to know when to spike your likability trait, your likability skill, right? Like when you're presenting to an audience, because one of the primary capabilities or technique or facets of a really good product leader is your ability to inspire and motivate. And you're multifaceted in that respect. And you have to have a certain amount of likability, right? Or if you're presenting research or you're coming back, like you want to be excited, there's gotta be a relatability, right? Because you're establishing relationships. I'm not saying it's shallow and all I care about is being liked. There's more to it. Like I got to have more meat on the bone with data and insights and, ammunition in my front pocket when I'm talking to people. But a really good product manager knows when to spike up their likability because they need it in that moment to get their audiences or their constituents engaged with them.
But likability doesn't earn me a bonus, get my product line in the direction it needs to go. Results do. Shouldn't I focus on results?
First off, that's false that likability won't give you a bonus. I think a lot of companies want to pretend that likability wouldn't give you a bonus. We did a whole episode on performance reviews, and a lot of we pretend that they're unbiased. We pretend that we remove the qualitative and the subjective and we make it objective and quantitative. But that's not true. So I envision a different spectrum in my head when I picture, if you talk about likability. I'm going to shift it just a little bit. On one side of the
Yeah.
spectrum, you have cheerleading. Yes, great. Everything's good. And that to me makes you really likable. Being agreeable is a great way to be likable. And then the other side of the spectrum is like more of a critical thinking, pushback, asking questions, drill in. People feel good when someone cheerleads. And it's certainly easier to deal with when someone just says yes every time and smiles. I actually think you can get pretty far in your career that way. I think you can make a good living being the person who just says yes and cheerleads. I've seen people moved around at a company from one position to the next just to make sure they hold on to them because they're so likable.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't say that you can't get your bonuses that way. I think you can get your bonuses. I think you can bank a lot of financial benefit from being likable.
Well, let's look at that. Let's look at the inverse of being likable. Like, let's deprioritize that. And what if we over-index on things like just seeking results? We are a steamroller.
So define steamroller.
If other people are objecting, my stakeholders might be objecting to the direction I'm going, to the things I'm doing to get the results I want to get. I'm just pushing my decisions through to drive those results.
I mean, you're right. I think that the point you were trying to make was, hey, being a steamroller, you're not going to get very far. And it's true. You're not going to. You got to work with people, right? People are human. You have to work with them. I just want to be careful here that we're trying to draw some opposition as if you have to choose.
Mm-hmm.
Should I be likable or should I try to achieve results? Should I be likable or should I try to be respected? These aren't distinct choices you have to make.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. But I do think there is one that any product professional in the world does need to consistently strive for, like to be to kind of turn the dial up on, and that is trust. I need people to trust me, whether I'm liked, respected, or results driven. I prize that as a quality in somebody who is seeking to be trusted, because you are making a lot of decisions all the time.
I mean, yeah, I agree. I want to explore that though. I want to explore the whole thing.
Okay.
Likable. Because we started off with, this, hey, Todd's on one side of the spectrum, Joe's on the other. What's funny is, I mean, of course I want to be liked. I care. I think what's important, Joe said it's like, when do you spike your likability? Like, when does that matter? I guess for me, it's, what matters in the moment. Give you an example. Well, we've all been trainers and coaches of other product managers for our clients. For me, being likable was important as a trainer. I got 3 days, got to get them listening to me, how fun I was, how much, and I always like to, me, I like to be fun. I like to tell stories. Yeah. I like all of my presentations to be fun. I like all of my meetings to be fun. But when I'm a trainer, how much you like me is really important. They're going to score me at the end of 3 days. And that score is largely driven on how much they like me. I learned that very early on. To do well by the company and to have a good relationship with my client, they got to like me. That's very important. Now in my role as a VP of product, still fun. Still do fun presentations. At the last company summit, I played my ukulele and did a whole parody song for the company. So, I'm going to still bring fun to all the meetings. But how much they like me is just a lot less important than it was when I was a trainer.
Yeah. Yeah. And knowing your context and the situation and even the culture of the organization you're operating within is important relative to how you're behaving and where you're going to put emphasis on some of these things, right?
I couldn't agree with you more. Yeah. I mean, I think going back to Todd's point, I don't think we're making a sacrifice. I think it's just knowing, like in Todd's example of playing the ukulele and doing a song, like he's trying to in his summit, he's trying to get everyone's, attention. He's trying to have a little bit of fun. He's trying to lighten the mood. Like that is exactly what he needed to do in that situation to get the awareness of everyone in the room or in the conference that he was doing. Like that's what a product manager or product leader needs to do. It's not you're going to sacrifice likability for being results driven or being trusted. You've got to have all of those. I think some product leaders though are going to spike higher in the likability trait in the way that they interact and the way that they build relationships across the organizations.
Oh, for sure. Because we're human beings. Like
right.
have our own. We talked about spikes previously in this podcast, where we spike, where we don't. So if we're not, this is where I see it as a little bit of, when can striving for likability be a bad thing? When does it get in the way?
It absolutely can be a bad thing.
Absolutely.
I'm glad you said that.
Yeah.
I'm glad you said that. When you're in a room and you don't want to say something, offer an opinion that is a dissenting opinion because you're afraid everyone in the room won't like you for saying it. Or maybe you're going to delay a decision because you have a different perspective or a different data point. And if you delay that decision, people aren't going to like you. Or, hey, I just identified this new risk to releasing this feature. I'm going to be much more likable if I release the feature, but if I go and tell people about this risk, they're going to be upset at me, and they may decide to release it anyway, right? There's lots of these situations where I think focusing on the likability can get in the way. And that's actually what I was thinking, Ryan. That's what I was thinking as you were talking about being likable. I was thinking I would never want my team to focus on that. Now, I care about relationship building. In fact, when a new person onboards to my team, I set them up with conversations across the company. I explain them how to have those conversations. And it made me wonder, maybe we should be talking more about how do you build relationships, or to your point, relationships of trust. Because I tell them, here's what they care about. Here's how they are as a personality. Here's how to approach them. Here's some questions you should ask. And I tell them, your goal over the first 6 weeks is to build these relationships of trust.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
But if they would have come back to me and say, Todd, I know you really want everyone to like me, I'd say, whoa, I never said that. I don't care about everyone liking you. I want people to trust you.
I think that's the delicate balance. That's the balance of, I got to build relationships and know how to communicate with them, know what resonates with them, build a bond. But it's not, to the point we're exchanging our mailing addresses and Christmas cards, right? That's not the extent we're trying to get to in the first 6 weeks, right? We're trying to, I want them to know who I am. I want them to know that they can go to me to be a trusted source, or, someone who can get stuff done. Like when I worked in fintech, I had no experience going into the role. And I remember my boss, Ryan, at the time, I remember asking him, like, am I behind the 8 ball going in this role? And he goes, no, because I brought you in because you're someone I view that can bring together, build strong relationships across organizations. I need someone who can motivate and inspire, who can bring operations, IT, sales, marketing, customer support together and figure out what's the next best thing to build. Like, that's why I brought you in. Like, we interviewed people that maybe had a background that was stronger, but we knew in the culture that we're in, their ability to communicate you were more likable.
Yeah.
I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically what he was saying.
At risk of taking the conversation down a different path, I just want to mention something. That was a good leader that recognized the true need, Joe, and said, all right, this is what the organization needs. Therefore, you're the right one for the job.
Yeah.
And even, I think we can do that as individuals too. Know where we spike, know where maybe if we're a little bit like me, I like being liked and to feel belonging and acceptance. I might need to partner myself or closely align myself with people who are results oriented so we can make progress together, right?
Well, you see, again, that's where perspective and context matters. When I was interviewing at the LA Times, I think I mentioned this before, I did something like 9 interviews. Then when I first started my first interview, there was a question about how would you work with the newsroom? And I answered that question in kind of a standard way, The next, how would you work with the newsroom? The next interview. So one interview after another interview, they keep saying the same thing. So I pick up on this trend, and early on, I'm like, okay, this is really important. I better figure this out because this is obviously important. So I started asking questions about that. Why is this important? And over the course of the day, I got better answering that question. I got better at giving some real insight. And I realized coming out of that day, like, wow, that building relationships with the newsroom is going to be important. I learned during the course of those interviews that in these media companies, you have this division of business and editorial, and there's this wall there. And your success as a product manager in these spaces is your ability to break through that wall.
Yep.
I don't characterize that as being likable. I didn't come out of that going like, oh, I need to be liked by the newsroom. I saw it more as I need to figure out how to functionally work with the newsroom. In other words, again, going back to that keyword trust, I got to get them to trust me and respect me so we can work effectively.
Yeah. So we've kind of established, I think pretty firmly, that trust and respect, good things, like thumbs up. How do we do that? Todd, you were talking about that you got questioned 9 times. How are you going to build a relationship with the newsroom? And now you've got lots of years under your belt as a professional. How do we do it?
Well, first off, manager similar to Joe's manager, knew that was something that was important. And so she's actually the first person she taught me how to go speak to editors. Like, this is what you need to say. This is who they are. She gave me those insights. This is why I've done it ever since then for people that joined my team, because I learned that from her. But the things that I did right was I didn't march in with my opinion. All I marched in with, I wanted to learn. I presented myself as someone who's really humble, willing to learn. And I learned intentionally. Now, you can position yourself as someone who's willing to learn and then just sit and let them talk at you. That's not what I did. When I would have these meetings, I would listen intently for, okay, what are the things they're really trying to achieve? Mm-hmm. What are their values? Mm-hmm. And I make notes about these things. So I had a sense of, here's how I work with this person. Mm-hmm. And then I spent a lot of time early on showing them that I respected them. Because I knew that they needed to see that before they would respect me. Yeah. So, and by the way, throughout my career, I don't want to make it sound like I've always been good at this. There are times in my career where I've done the opposite. And I've seen the pains of that. I just went in too heavy-handed, went in demanding respect and didn't work out. In this case, I did it right. And I would really show them that I respected them. I wasn't going to step on their toes editorially. I didn't want to get in their way, or journalistic integrity mattered more to me than whether or not we got another video view. So anyway, I just showed that. Once they knew, okay, Todd values where we're coming from, he respects us, I probably got more done than most product managers there because it was easy. They just worked with me. But it's because they knew I was not out just for business. I wasn't just trying to make dollars. Mm-hmm. And you could apply it to any industry. The industry I'm in now is patient care. You got to show you care about patients more than money. Yeah. You can kind of apply that to any industry where you're working with stakeholders outside of product.
Yeah, and that's interesting to me too, because knowing the context, which we talked about as well, you're working for a company now, Todd, that is very mission driven, right?
Correct.
And that's sometimes in those situations, you're striking a different balance than somebody who might be working in like a fintech where it's all about the dollar sign.
If we think about this podcast for a second, we're here to help newer product managers, new product leaders, right? So the scenarios are going into the way I'm looking at this, we're going into a new role. How do I get, I got to be able to establish impact, right? I got to get the different stakeholders that I work with. I got to establish trust right away.
Ooh, Joe, right? I want to just add quickly to that. Even people who might be operating as a product manager now, but are struggling to win support and want to press reset. I think this advice would apply, right?
Yep. And so I want to build off of what Todd did. So, this sounds like common sense, but the best product leaders or product managers are those that are very user customer focused. You treat your stakeholders like they're your customer, right? Like what Todd did is he empathized with them. He listened. He understood what their goals and their motivations were, right? He didn't go I made the same mistake. There was a time in my career where I went in hot. Like, hey, I'm the expert. I've done this. And it didn't resonate. Even though if I might've been the person in the room that was right, it went over like a lead balloon. Right. So it was kind of like, there's a gentleman, his name was Jeff, when I was at Baird. And I said, what's the key to success? And he goes, well, Joe, there are 2 types of people. He's like, the first one, they come in and they're coming into a China shop and they're knocking plates down. Like they're just going to go in and they're going to try to change things. Right? They're breaking the porcelain. The other type of person that's the most successful in this company is they're going in and they're listening and they're probably understanding there's probably a really good reason why that decision was made. There's a history, there's a culture. You got to respect that. That lends itself to a certain amount of likability. And you're, like Todd said, you're listening. but you're taking notes. You're not just listening for the sake of listening. You're doing it because you're going to go back to the next time you meet with that person, you're going to know what their hot buttons are, and you're going to communicate in a way with them that it resonates with them. Mm-hmm. And I think that builds trust because it shows that you're listening to them.
Now, in both of your stories, I noticed you said something very similar. I need them to know I trust them before they will trust me. And I think that's an important tip. First.
Yeah. Trust is earned, not given.
Both of your stories. Curiosity is important here. Don't approach it as the bull in the china shop. Approach it as, no, I'm interested. Tell me more. I want to know what's going on here so I can be as informed as possible.
With ChatGPT, it makes it easier for you to, like, when you do have those meetings, write down your notes and then immediately go back and acknowledge, like, show them that you listened and say, hey, do I have it right? Did I capture the essence of what you wanted to tell me? And then that gives them a moment like, no, you got to do this, or okay, he's got it. Like that extra step.
Tip number 2, confirm understanding. Don't just listen. Confirm you're hearing what you believe to be hearing. I think that's great.
This is where the gold matters, though. And this is why I shudder a little bit when we talk about likability. Like, what is the goal? And when I started the LA Times, like, I didn't have that goal ever. I didn't think about that. My thought was, I have to make a difference here. Mm-hmm. This is my first real product manager job. Then I have to show that I know what I'm doing and make an impact. What's your goal? And this is why I say it's important, because if your goal, to your point earlier, Ryan, is to get the bonus, to get the corner office, to get the best jobs, well, guess what? There's some real likable people who get that stuff without ever having to stand up in a room of people, without ever having to stand against people going a different direction. You can be very likable and have a big title and lots of money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think this is the balance, the word integrity. You've got to have integrity. You can't sacrifice likableness for integrity. I've heard too many times in my career, hey, great guy, sucks at what he does. I've heard that a few times. Yes. I've heard that a few times in my life, right? Like, I like him as a person. He's just not very good at what he does. I wouldn't, to Brian's point, very beginning, that would crush me, Ryan.
Yeah.
That would crush me.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Like that. Yeah. And I think to Todd's point, he made the right sacrifice. And I think we want to work with, as a leader, we want to know that we work with integrity, that over time, that respect and the way people perceive you will get you, it'll get you that corner office, but you'll have it for a long time, right? That, yes, to Todd's point, there are some people out there that have liked their way up in the organization, but their tenure is very short-lived. Because when times get tough, like in right now, likability is not going to get you very far.
What was funny though is, I know a guy who's very likable, very nice. He always seems to have another VP title. I don't see what value he creates, but he's very likable.
Yeah. I mean, there is an inverse to this person too. Every light side, there's a dark side. It's the people who are so good at what they do, you have to deal with them, right?
And I do not believe in that. Yeah. I have a firm no jerks policy because I don't believe in that. But you're right. There are some people who are tolerated at companies despite being absolute jerks.
Yeah. That's part of the culture. It's like, we will forego a really talented person because this is how they treat other individuals in the organization. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like, you guys probably read the stories where people are getting interviewed for high-paying jobs, and they take the president takes them out to breakfast, and they ask the waiter to screw up the order, and they want to see how they react. Yeah. Or they screw up, like they order an Uber, and the Uber takes them to the wrong place. They want to see, even in those situations, how they react. Or even, and I learned this very early in my career, when you're going in for a job interview, how you treat the front desk receptionist.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Those things matter. They're going to, the hiring manager is going to be like, hey, how was he? Was he respectable? Was he kind? How did he talk? Because, right, that's a measure of there's a character. You have to be high character. And I think, as we kind of move along in our discussion right here, again, those individuals that want to hit the reset button or those going into the role, high character, high integrity, those are things that will carry you in your career.
I agree.
All right, guys. So I'm interested to hear from you. If you had to give some advice to a product manager out there, what is one thing they could start doing tomorrow to increase their trust, respect, and influence?
So Joe mentioned integrity. I think a big part of integrity is being honest about what you don't know and being forthcoming when you've had a miss or a mistake. You want to earn trust and respect, be very transparent about that. I tell my team all that all the time. I had someone cover me in a meeting today, and I told him, hey, going into the meeting, stuff's going to come up that you don't know. If you don't pretend you know. Just be honest. Oh, I don't know that. I can look that up, get back to you on that. But I think that builds trust really fast is when you realize, okay, when this person tells me something, they're not BSing, because if they don't know, they're going to say they don't know. Or they're not lying to me. If they make a mistake, they're very open about it. Hey, had a miss here. Wish we had done this differently. Here's how I'm going to do it next time. I think that kind of being open, that kind of openness helps build trust.
So the advice is really around feedback. There's a term, I heard it on a pod, who's who in your zoo? Who are the main folks that you have to interact with? God, ask for feedback. Like, hey, I want to be better at this. What's working well? What's not? Like, acknowledge it. Like, you're going to have to get uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You're going to have to get uncomfortable. And that was a turning point in my career. Yeah, I had to get uncomfortable. I just didn't see it. I'll be honest. I probably did over-index on it, on a likability trait. I probably did, right? That's probably one of my biggest fears.
I can't imagine anyone not liking you.
How
much time do you have to invest in that, Joe? Like,
minutes? But seriously though, plenty.
Yeah.
Getting that honest feedback. Don't wait until a mid-year review. Don't wait until an annual review for that feedback. Like, go out and seek it. And then based off of it, try to make some small adjustments. Don't don't change who you are, but try to acknowledge what you heard. Thank them for that feedback. And then little by little, chip by chip, knock it out, right? Try to start addressing it, acknowledge them, show it, right? Show the effort.
And I want to give an extension. So my one thing you could do tomorrow would be, don't be afraid to ask your stakeholders to tell you about somebody they trust and what makes them trust them. Because then you're going to learn something. You're going to learn.
That's great. I like that.
I love that.
How you can operate.
Write that down.
So this is how I can work better with that individual, because everybody's going to be a little bit different. So you're not only empathizing, but you're just learning, how do I make myself more efficient at getting them to trust me?
Well, I found a great way of doing it is I just use my title, So tell me, hey, tell me about a product manager that you really liked working with. What was the best product manager you ever worked with?
Yeah. What made them good?
For our listeners, I just realized Todd changed his title under his name.
Joe always realizes it's like 10 minutes before we're...
Yeah, I know. I'm slow to the game sometimes. So anyways, go ahead.
Tell them what the title says.
It says, I love Joe.
It should say, I like Joe.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
I love Joe's likability. Anyway, so what I'll do is I'll use my title. So tell me about a product manager you loved working with and what made them great to work with. Mm-hmm. And I think I've said it on another episode before that an engineer or a solution architect told me, keep business off my back. I was like, okay,
yes.
Done.
Okay. All right, guys. Do you think it's time for takeaways?
Yeah, we can do that.
Sure. No, we always say yes. Everything's awesome and great. So I thought I'd throw a sure in there.
I like it. Sure. All right. Who wants to go first? What's one of your takeaways from our conversation on the porch tonight?
I guess the biggest piece of it is you've got to be vulnerable, right? Being vulnerable. Show that you want to be better. Show that you want to improve. Show that you want to grow. That to me is one of the first steps you can take to building that likability and that integrity. Be vulnerable. Show people that I don't know everything. And I need them to help me be better at what I do so we can be better as a product.
This might have been more implied, but I think my takeaway here is we can't let ourselves get distracted by the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Oh.
Like I realize that we might actually decrease our value by worrying about the wrong thing.
Ooh,
We might
that's
worry, "Oh, I don't know if they like me," when they respect the heck out of you. And by over-indexing on likability, maybe you ruin it a little bit.
Yeah, for me, it's really about every situation's different. Every person is different. Don't be afraid to try different approaches to try to build trust across your stakeholder group. Now, I'm not saying like deploy the nuclear option in those cases and blow up relationships, but instead, what I mean is look for ways to build trust, or different ways to build trust, whether it's having one-on-one conversations and asking them questions, whether it's how you're sort of presenting yourself and information in meetings or across when you're with teams of people. How is it you're communicating with them to build that trust? Look for those ways and try different things and find out what works for you in your situation, find out what doesn't.
Everyone's going to be different. Like everybody it's not like a one size fits all technique. You've got to understand like everyone's going to be different in the way that they want to be treated and how you're going to interact with them.
I love that you're saying that. I know what that in here, but I love that you're saying that because I think sometimes we believe likability is like a one type of thing. Like, there's some people I really like that other people don't like.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And there's some people I cannot stand, and it seems like everybody likes them. People watch Keeping Up with the Kardashians. What the heck is that? Anyway.
All right, guys.
So you like the weather a little bit more. Hopefully you both like me a little bit more, and you're just liking life. So guys, lean into the like. Have a good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. I like you both. Thank you for joining us on the Product Porch. We release new episodes every 2 weeks. You can also find us on LinkedIn for more content. We offer a special thank you to AJ and Jack Block here for the music. The views and opinions expressed by the hosts of this podcast are their own and do not represent nor necessarily reflect those of their employer.